All right, let's talk about a really cool story. It's about a company called Ravenstack Technologies, and they had a problem that, most people would kill for. They were growing way too fast. But that amazing success was on the verge of becoming an absolute nightmare. So, just picture this. You're building a massive skyscraper, right? But instead of a proper architectural plan, your team is just using scribbled notes, a ton of guesswork, and a whole lot of frantic late-night fixes. Well, that was Ravenstack. Their own incredible growth was literally causing the foundation of their company to crumble. And this chaos led to this daily ritual of just pure panic. It started with the simple stuff. You've got this super important server, a critical piece of the whole puzzle, and nobody, and I mean nobody, has a clue who built it or why it's even there. Then, of course, it got worse. You'd have all these different versions of the same system running at the same time, and each one was just a little bit different. So, which one's the right one? The one that actually works? It was a total guessing game, and that led to mistakes all the time. And this one? Oh, this was the killer. The one question that kept everyone up at night. When something finally did work, it felt like a miracle because they had no idea how to do it again. Their success wasn't planned, it was basically a happy accident. And, well, you can't build a global business on accidents. The whole thing came to a head when they had this huge opportunity land on their desk, a massive contract with a multinational bank. But the bank had really strict rules about speed, security, and consistency. So the CTO just drew a line in the sand. She said, look, this isn't about getting better anymore. This is about survival. We either change how we do everything or we lose the biggest deal in our history. So with all that pressure, a new idea started to bubble up from the engineering team. And it wasn't just another tool or a quick fix. It was a totally new way of thinking. They decided it was time to stop building everything by hand and start using a blueprint. So this big idea has a fancy name, infrastructure as code. But let's just forget the jargon. To explain it like you're five, think of it like this. Instead of building a Lego castle by clicking a million buttons and some confusing menu, which is slow and you'll probably make mistakes, you just write down a simple recipe, a blueprint. You give that recipe to the computer, and bam, it builds the exact perfect castle for you every single time. And this is what their very first blueprint actually looked like. Seriously. It's not scary, right? It's not complicated. It's just a few lines of text that say, hey, computer, I need a server, use this specific image, and make it this size. That's it. This little text file, made for a tool called Terraform, was about to change absolutely everything for them. The moment of truth was what happened next. They ran this little blueprint, and poof, like magic, a perfect server just appeared, exactly like the recipe said it should. You can just imagine the relief in the room. This was their big aha moment. They realized they didn't have to remember all the steps anymore. The blueprint was the memory. It was the guaranteed recipe for a perfect server. Now, this wasn't just about fixing a problem. Once they started using this blueprint approach, it was like the whole team got a set of incredible new superpowers that totally transformed the way they worked. And this slide says it all. The first superpower was just certainty. The old way, over on the left, was pure guesswork. Out-of-date instructions, human error, systems that never matched. But the blueprint way, that created a single source of truth. The code itself was the documentation. It was like having a perfect mold that created an identical, flawless results every single time. Okay, superpower number 2 was a huge deal, especially for that bank contract. They had to use a bunch of different cloud providers. Before, that meant learning 3 or 4 completely different, complicated systems. But with their new blueprint, they could use the exact same language and the exact same tool to build on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, you name it. It was like one blueprint to rule them all. Then they got the superpower of reusability. It was amazing. They made this master blueprint for their standard environment. So now, whenever a team needed a whole new setup, servers, networks, databases, the whole shebang, they didn't have to start from scratch. Nope. They just grabbed that blueprint module, ran one single command, and a perfect complex environment just sprang to life. They built 7 of these in one afternoon, something that used to take them 3 weeks. This next superpower, this is the one that lets you sleep at night. It took all the fear out of making changes. Because before the blueprint was applied, the tool would show them a plan. It would say, okay, hold on, here is exactly what I am about to do. I'm going to add this, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to delete this. No more surprises. No more accidentally breaking the whole system. Deployments were suddenly safe and totally predictable. And here's a superpower that even the finance department loved. The same system that was so good at building things was also great at cleaning up after itself. All those old test environments, those unused resources that just sit there racking up a bill, they were automatically deleted. This stopped all the waste and saved them thousands and thousands of dollars every single month. So you start putting all these superpowers together, right? And what you end up with isn't just a better IT department. What you get is a full-blown, quiet revolution that completely changed the business itself from the inside out. Let's just talk about the numbers for a second, because they're kind of mind-blowing. They saw a 95% reduction in the time it took to get a new environment ready for a team. Think about that. What used to take them 3 entire weeks now took about 45 minutes. And what about the money? Well, by making sure everything was consistent and by automatically cleaning up all that waste, they slashed their monthly cloud bill by 28%. That's real money that went straight back to the bottom line. If those numbers don't quite hit you, just look at this chart. The difference is just staggering. On the left, a 3-week marathon. On the right, thanks to Terraform, a 45-minute sprint. This wasn't just a small improvement. It fundamentally changed the speed and agility of the entire company. And this is how the CTO, the same person who gave that ultimatum at the start of our story, how she described the change. It wasn't loud or flashy. It was a quiet revolution, all driven by a simple blueprint that literally rebuilt their company. And oh yeah, they totally won that bank contract. So the real takeaway from this whole story is this. This was never really about the technology. Not really. It was about giving a company the confidence to grow. By turning their chaotic, manual way of doing things into a clear, repeatable blueprint, they built a business that could finally grow without being terrified of its own success. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. For Ravenstack, the problem was their infrastructure, and the blueprint was code. But this idea is so much bigger than that. So the question for you is, what's the chaos in your world that's holding you back? And what's the simple, repeatable blueprint that could unlock your own fearless growth?